here on number 22, again, we are in Delta Math. Your CPM fall semester review is in Delta Math. These questions on this review were written specifically to mirror the questions that are on the fall semester exam. So if you can answer these questions, you're going to do fine on the exam. Okay. Every question, there's the exact same number of questions on the test as there are on the exam or on the review. Okay, there is one mirroring every type of question, bless you, from the test. So just keep that in mind. And again, all of the videos for the ones that we don't go over are going to be posted here. The first two are already posted. Okay, I'm recording the third right now. It'll be there when we finish. Okay, so we're on number 22 in Delta Math on our semester review. So it wants us to simplify. Again, this is one that we learned originally to do by hand with the box method. Now remember, you could do the 3x2 box and make sure every term gets multiplied and then simplify. Okay, you should be able to do that by hand. But since we're getting to use Desmos, you can also, since this is a multiple choice question, you can type in the equation or the expression as it's given to you, like this, and then you could type in your answer choices, and you're trying to see which one is the same graphically, because if you simplify it correctly, they're going to graph the exact same curve, okay, or line, or whatever they graph. In this case, it is going to be a curve. Okay, so I'm going to type in the first answer choice, which is 3x cubed plus 6x minus 6. Okay, so the original graph, I'm going to make that one black. Okay, and then this one that I just typed in green, those are not the same. Okay, they're in two different locations. So that's not it. It's not that first answer choice. So then I'm going to type in the second answer choice, which is 6x squared plus 4x minus 8. And then I'm going to compare that graph. Those are not the same either. So that's not it. So let me type in that 12x cubed. I'll pull the graph, the Desmos screen back over in just a second after I type it in. Plus 2x squared minus 20x plus 8. Okay, so you can see I've typed that in here. And when I look over here at this graph, I only see one curve. If I turn that green on and off, that black one is right underneath it, isn't it? That's what we're looking for. They are the exact same graph. So that is the simplified version of the expression we were given. Okay, and those of you doing it by hand can see that 4x times 3x squared, that's where the 12x cubed came from. Okay, you're just distributing all these terms to everything in the other set of parentheses. So whether you did it by hand or whether you did it graphically, it should have come out to this answer choice. Okay. In this one, we are told you and a friend go to Taco Bell for lunch. You order 2 soft tacos and 2 burritos, and your bill is $7.50. Man, this must be an old question because it's a lot more expensive now. Your friend's bill is $13.50 for 3 soft tacos and 4 burritos. How much do soft tacos cost? How much do burritos cost? So, a couple different ways you could do this. By hand, we would write our equations and we would do substitution or elimination. This is a system of equations problem. You have multiple choices though. So you could plug the scenario in, okay, for each of these answer choices and see which one comes out true for your bill and your friend's bill. Okay, the total of those two. See which one works for both of y'all. Okay, or you can do this graphically. Now, graphically, you still have to be able to write the equation based on the scenario. So we have to decide what X and Y are going to represent. So I'm just going to go in the order that they gave it to us. They talked about soft tacos first. So I'm going to make soft tacos my X and burritos my Y. Okay, and so for the first person, it says 2 soft tacos, so 2X, and 2 burritos, so 2Y, and their total was $7.50. And then your friend got 3 tacos, so 3X, and 4 burritos, so 4Y, and their total was $13.50. Now, what we're looking for when we write the system of equations like this is the point where they intersect. So we can zoom in on our graph over here and we can see that point of intersection is at 1.5 or 150 and 2.25 or $2.25. Now you have to remember what X, that's X and Y. X, I said, was soft tacos, and Y, I said, was the burritos. So the soft tacos are $1.50, and the burritos are $2.25. Now this one had the correct numbers, but it had them switched. So you have to know which one is X and which one is Y. Okay. All right, here's another graphing one. It asks which graph represents this equation. Well, initially when we did linear equations, I think this was back in unit 1 or 2, we would get this in Y equals. So we would have to subtract the 2X, divide the -7, and then we would have to know our slope is M and our y-intercept is B when we're in Y equals mx plus B form. Or, because this is in standard form, you could use the cover-up method and see what your X and Y intercepts should be. But now that we get to use Desmos, it's even easier. I need y'all to stop talking, gentlemen. Stop talking. All right, so this is 2X minus 7Y equals 21. So it's going to graph it for me. I'm going to, I don't know why this graph is taking up so much space. Here we go. So there's the line. It should be going through the x-axis at 10.5 and the y-axis at -3. So you can compare that to your choices. So that one looks like it's going to go through over here at 10.5 and it's crossing at -3 for the y. None of the others are close to that. So should be answer choice A there. So getting to use Desmos is going to make a lot of these real quick and simple. Now the slope. What is the slope of the following equation? So you can solve this for y by subtracting the 6x over. Okay, so if I subtracted the 6x over, it would be y equals -6x minus 2, right? That's what it would be in y equals mx plus b form. And you have to remember, in y equals mx plus b, m is the slope. So the slope is that coefficient in front of x. So it's -6. Okay. Or if you don't remember how to solve for y, you could type this in just as it's given and look at the graph and then count the slope. So here between the y-intercept and another point, I would have to count, looking at those grid lines, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like 6 before I can go over 1 and be at the intersection of these grid lines. So that was up 6, left 1. So 6 over -1, which is -6 still. So you can count it in the graph if that's easier for you, or you can solve for y and pick out the m value. All right, in number 26, we're told if A is -2, B is 3, and C is -3, evaluate this. So this is a PEMDAS, an order of operations question, and it was a lot more complex, or it just took more steps when we were having to do this with a 4-function calculator. But now you've got 2 options. You can type it in just as you see it with A, B's, and C's. And then the absolute value, you'd have to get down here. So you can type it in like this, and notice you can add a slider for A, B, and C, and then you can set them to what they set up here. So it said A is -2, so I'm going to set the A to -2. B is 3, so I'm going to set B to 3. And C is -3, so I'm going to set C to -3. So when those are the case, when A is -2, B is 3, and C is -3, we get -25 as our answer. So that's one way. Or instead of having those sliders, you could simply replace the A in the equation. So I can say A is -2, B is 3, and C is -3, and C was in 2 places. And we get -25 doing it that way as well. So if you like having those sliders and set the slider to what they say they should be, or if you like actually inputting the numbers, either one is fine. When you're inputting the numbers, do use parentheses though, because if you don't, those negatives could change your answer. But this should come out to -25. All right, in 27, it says Kiyoshi is replacing some of the flooring in his house. He'll need 200 square feet of hardwood flooring, 350 square feet of carpet. He would like to determine the possible prices per square foot for both types of flooring, keeping the cost to no more than $2,000, which inequality describes the situation. Okay, so this is a multiple choice question. Which of these represents this scenario, where X is the hardwood flooring price and Y is the carpet price? So it says 200 square feet of hardwood, so 200 times X, and 350 of carpet, so 350 times Y. This first one has the X and Y in the wrong spot. It should be 200X and 350Y. So it's got to be one of these bottom 2. The only difference here is our inequality. They want this total cost of the flooring to be no more than $2,000. This inequality reads greater than or equal to $2,000. This one reads less than or equal. No more than means it can be less, it cannot be greater. So it's got to be this one. If you struggle with your inequalities and knowing which sign means what direction, and you've narrowed it down to those 2, you could plug them in and get a visual and say, okay, this one says greater than or equal to 2,000. So you can see in the graph that it's shaded above. So that means the cost would be more. That's not what they wanted. So then you could change it and you could say less than or equal, and you can see the shading is below. So if you forget the greater than or less than symbols, look and get a visual and you can see, oh, it's shaded below, that's less than, or oh, it's shaded above, that's greater than. Okay, they want the cost to be up to 2,000, no more. So less than or up to 2,000. All right, on 28, it says, which of the following linear equations is a line that passes through the point 2, -4 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 2x minus 4? Okay, so you need to know perpendicular, that term. What does perpendicular mean? Perpendicular means it makes a 90-degree angle. It's like the intersection at two streets, okay? Most intersections, not all intersections are a 90-degree angle, but the majority are. It makes like a T or a cross, okay? It's a 90-degree angle where these lines intersect. So if you're a visual person, you could plug in this line and the answer choices and see which one looks like it makes the 90-degree angle. Okay, or algebraically, you could know that perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the slope here in this equation given is a 2. So the opposite, because this is positive, the opposite's going to be negative. And the reciprocal means flip the fraction. So instead of a 2, it's got to be a 1/2. So we know the slope has to be -1/2. So we can immediately eliminate these bottom two answer choices. Okay. If it had said parallel, then it has the same slope. It would have been one of these. But perpendicular means opposite reciprocal slope. So it's got to be one of these top two answer choices. And then it says it goes through the point 2, -4. So you could plug in 2 for X and -4 for Y and see if it comes out true. Whichever of these it comes out true in, the left does equal the right, that's your answer. Or graphically, I could type in y equals 2x minus 4, and then I've narrowed it down to these two answer choices, so I could type both in and see. So 1/2 x minus 3 or -1/2 x plus 2. So I'm going to make the original one black, and I'm trying to see, is this blue one or green one the perpendicular line? Ooh, those both look pretty perpendicular. So now which one goes through the point 2, -4? Okay, so I'm going to just put the point 2, -4 on here. I'm going to see, and you can make it whatever color you want to make it. I'm going to make it red so it stands out a little more. Does the blue line or the green line go through that point? The blue one, obviously, right? So it's this blue one. It's the -1/2 x minus 3. So that's the one that's perpendicular and goes through this point. This one was perpendicular, but it didn't go through that point. It's got to meet all the requirements that are listed. All right, on 29, we're evaluating. This is straight order of operations, PEMDAS, and we did it piece by piece before because we only had 4 function calculators. But now that you have Desmos, you can enter this all at once if you are very careful to enter all of the symbols and parentheses and signs just as they are written. Okay, and I type it in just as it is, 22. Easy peasy, just type it in as it's given. Now that you get to use Desmos, those are going to be a lot easier. Here's another evaluate. So I'm just going to type it in. Now, when I have a complex fraction like this, where there's a lot on top or bottom, I'm going to type in my divide symbol first, so I can go ahead and separate my top and bottom. So my bottom is just -1. And on top, I've got 4 minus 3, parenthesis, 10 minus 12, close parenthesis, cubed. -28. No reason to miss these evaluate ones when you get Desmos. All right, number 31, it says write the simplified form of the expression. Now again, if this was actually, even if it was multiple choice, you couldn't really check this in Desmos because you've got X and Y in an expression. So you wouldn't be able to check this graphically. So I can't do it graphically. I'm just going to use these lines to show my work. So what's happening is when you divide polynomial expressions, we've talked about this. I can't remember what unit number it was, maybe 4. Everything in the top is being divided by negative 2y. So if it is helpful to separate out the 12xy over the minus 2y, and then the minus, and then a separate 18y squared over negative 2y. If it helps to separate them out, go ahead and separate them out, because that's what you're doing. Both are individually getting divided by the negative 2y. So the 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. And there is no x in the denominator, so that x from the numerator just stays. And then the y divided by y reduces, so there's no y left. So now on to the second term, we've got a negative divided by a negative. So that's going to become a positive. And then 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then y squared divided by y is just y. Remember, when you're dividing polynomials here, you subtract the power. And that y has no power, it's an understood 1. So 2 minus 1 is just a power of 1. So that's all it would come out to, is negative 6x plus 9y. Oh, that was it. There was only 31 questions, so we did them all. So again, if we didn't, the ones that we started in this class period, I think with number 22. Okay, so any of those before that, those videos are posted here. Video 1 is number 1 through 10, and video number 2 is 11 through 21. So if you need help with any of those, you can go and watch those videos, and you can fast forward to the problems that you need help with. You don't have to watch the videos in their entirety. I suggest that you do, especially if you're getting some wrong, or if you did a lot of it by hand and you're like, oh, I could have done some of this an easier way now that we have Desmos. So I would suggest watching all 3 videos before you come and take your exam. Okay, I think you'll see some easier ways to solve things using Desmos that will make that exam a lot easier.